Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
There's an old saying that loose lips sink ships. Sometimes the best way to resolve a problem or a situation is to wait it out. The problem we humans have is that we are so busy trying to push the situation to get the problem behind us that we lose sight of what's right in front of us. After 3 years of marriage, my loving wife had filed for a divorce while I was on a 2-week run in the farthest corner of the company's sales territory. We sold computers to set up to run certain lines of equipment. I was one of the few that could also install them. As a result, I had been sent in to set 3 new installments up. In the divorce petition was the reason why she had filed. According to a third-party statement, I was having an ongoing affair with her father's secretary. It was humorous because his secretary worked at his state capitol office. That was 275 miles roughly from where we lived in Jackson, Missouri. It made it sound like I was taking 2 days a week to travel to the Capitol to stay overnight in a hotel and drive back the next day. Upon my first day back, I was fired. No reason was given, but I was paid what was due according to the state's labor laws. I believed but could not prove it was because of what was being claimed by my wife in her divorce petition. My boss and my wife's family were members of the same community church. I smelled a setup. I had only met my father-in-law's secretary once, and that was during our formal engagement party. She had tried to come on to me, and I had shut her down. Someone had seen the chance for advantage and went for it. The question was who and why now. Rachel's father was more of a follower than a man who could stand on his own. He got into politics only when his father had decided to retire. His great-grandfather, a career politician, had known when the interstate was going to be built and had bought the land around it all throughout the state. He had one rule. He only leased the land for development. When the lease ran out, the improvements torn down ready for new development. The family ended up using some to develop their own in chain and bought other businesses. When he died, the family was super rich as a result and had continued on as he did. It was almost like a golden parachute for the whole family. He had won the seat in a landslide and had kept it ever since. It hadn't even been a week since I had been served in here. We were standing before Judge Donald McDonald. I had not even hired a lawyer and was sleeping at a friend's place until I got back on my feet. My wife's lawyer, a well-known feminist who was from state capitol, wanted to get the court moving towards the divorce. Even to the judge, this just seemed to be rushed, and he wondered why. He was hoping to find something that would slow down the plaintiff's rush for judgment. It gave us both reasons for wanting to slow things down. What had stuck out right away was that my wife's lawyer had scheduled the first appointment before the judge the same day she filed. I listened with interest to what she had to say in her opening statement. The judge then asked me what I had to say. Your Honor, 2 things have happened. First of all, we are all here before you because of hearsay. There is no proof. As for my wife Rachel and I, as far as I knew, everything was fine. I said. Secondly, I believe it's primarily because my wife Rachel is about to come into the rest of her family trust. Under state law, when that happens, I automatically would be entitled to half if we got divorced. How soon is that going to happen? The judge asked. On her 25th birthday, which in less than 6 months away, I said. The judge picked up the petition and read the complaint through in full for the first time. After pausing for a few, he said, Mr. Richards, do you have anything further to add? Only that my former boss is my wife's father's best friend. They, like my wife and I, are members of the same church. When I returned from my last sales trip, I was terminated, and no reason was given. I explained. I request that my wife be forced to pay my lost wages until this is resolved. Her current trust is worth $10 million and is still being controlled by her father. On her next birthday, she gets full access to the rest, which will bring the total amount up to $100 million. At that time, according to the way the trust was set up, her father also loses his control over it. The judge turned to the feminist lawyer and asked, Do you wish to dispute the facts that were just explained to me, Ms. Livingston? No, Your Honor, that's why I filed, because the wife feels that there is no way they as a couple can work their differences out. Ms. Livingston explained. The judge saw me smiling. Any further thoughts, Mr. Richards? Only one, Your Honor, I said. My wife is 6 weeks pregnant with our first child, and I think that she is being influenced by others because of my point of view. Having perked the judge's interest, he said, Explain further, please. My wife's family and friends are all politically aligned with one party's point of view. I am an independent with more of a conservative point of view, I said. I feel her extended family are afraid that I am going to expose our unborn child to my point of view. With the political environment we are living with, the fact that hearsay is being used implies that this may be the very cause. There's no proof of that, Your Honor, Ms. Livingston said with excitement. You can't allow hearsay to be used in court. The judge looked at me with a big smile, then turned to my wife's lawyer. You're right, Ms. Livingston, we can't accept hearsay. That is why you're going to get the lady who provided the statement to appear before me so she can give the names of the party and their legal addresses who claim to witness these things happening. I want them so I can subpoena them so they can testify before me in court, the judge said in anger. And since Mr. Richards, as you have pointed out, has been evicted from his own house and fired because of those same influences that started this, I'm ordering Mrs. Richards to pay him $5,000 a month temporary support, retroactive from the day this was filed before the court, so his first payment is due. Your Honor, you can't do this, Ms. Livingston said. The witness lives and works in the Capitol. Was your client's husband allowed to get anything out of the house? Did his wife confront him with the accusation? Judge Donald asked. No, Your Honor, to both questions, she replied. This statement was just recently obtained. By whom? You acted just like a politician, saw a chance to earn $1 and take advantage of a situation to affect the outcome. Judge MacDonald said firmly. Come back and hear again, Ms. Livingston, with a divorce that appears to be over the difference of views of those outsides of the family itself, and I will hold you in contempt. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, she said meekly. Ms. Livingston, in my court, I expect both parties to physically present, so have her here the next time you appear. One more question, who is paying your bill? The judge asked. John Brownstone, she answered. The local representative for the State House, the judge said, who spends 90% of his time at the state capitol. Yes, Your Honor, I said. He's my father-in-law. How do you get along? The judge asked. We tolerate each other, I said. When he starts talking about making the country a socialist country, I leave the room. We both know each other's views and I see his conduct as trying to put a wedge between my wife and I. So, you haven't talked to your wife since you have been served? The judge said. No, Your Honor. I did swing by the house to talk to her, but learned from the security hired by her father to watch the place that she was out of town and that the locks had been changed. She has either changed her phone number or blocked me. Ms. Livingston, where is Mrs. Richards currently residing? The judge asked. In the Capitol, with her father. Ms. Livingston responded. I see this is looking more and more like a hit job to me. Looks like Mr. Richards' view of things is exactly what is happening. I expect you both to appear before me a week from today at 9 a.m. The court is adjourned. The judge said. I showed up in court with a lawyer this time. I could see my wife Rachel sitting beside Ms. Livingston and a lady I did not know. After taking the bench, Judge Donald MacDonald went right to work. Ms. Livingston, has the defendant being paid the court-ordered alimony? The judge asked. No, Your Honor. Her father is refusing to allow it to be paid out of the trust. Ms. Livingston replied. Let me address your client directly and have her answer through the mic. The judge said. Mrs. Richards, you are of legal age, are you not? Judge Donald asked. Yes, I am, Rachel replied. Where are you residing at this time? The judge asked. With my father at the house in Jefferson, Rachel replied. You are living off of your trust right now. What were you using for money these last 5 years? My husband and I both worked very hard. We did not need to touch the trust. 5 weeks ago, I told my father that I wanted some of the trust money to remodel one of the bedrooms into a nursery. Rachel explained. He decided I should quit my job because I could use the trust money. My husband said no, we can make it on our own. My father said he didn't want anything affecting the birth of the child, and my working may do that. This letter used to file from a divorce, how did you come in possession of it? The judge asked. My father said it was mailed to his office, and he brought it to me. Did your father out and out refuse to write the check from the trust for support? The judge asked. No. He said I should refuse to settle or pay anything until all the lawyers have worked everything out. Rachel said. So, since we need both our signatures on any trust check, he just refused to sign. Bad mistake, Mrs. Richards. I'm holding you in contempt of court. Officer, escort the lady to jail as soon as this hearing is over. What your father says or does has nothing to do with this case. You, in my eyes, are an adult and will be treated accordingly. Mrs. Richards, I order you to turn over possession of the marital home to Mr. Richards since you are not residing there. He helped pay for it, so he has just as much right to be there as you. Ms. Livingstone, if Mr. Richards is not back in his home by 4 this afternoon, I will hold you responsible. I looked at my wife as her face turned white. It was fun watching her have to deal with the fact that her father's wisdom had led her directly to jail. There was no way her dad could get here before the end of the court day, which meant Rachel would be exposed to a world she had never seen. Ms. Livingston was beginning to realize that she was not dealing with a liberal-minded judge. Ms. Livingston, I presume the other lady is the one that wrote the notarized hearsay letter claiming that there was an affair, so have her approach the mic. Name, age, occupation, and address, please. The judge said. Nora Charles, 34, an office clerk at the Capitol. She said before disclosing her address. Do you have the names and addresses I requested? The judge asked. Yes. How do you know these ladies? The judge asked, having a pretty good idea of what she was going to say. I work with them at the Capitol. She responded. She then walked up and handed him the list. Handing the paper to a clerk, he said, have the subpoenas drawn up and served. All charges are to be assigned to the plaintiff. Ms. Livingston was livid. She had never seen a judge act like him. Are there any further items to bring up today? The judge asked. How long will Mrs. Richards be held? Until someone presents this court with the alimony for this and next month's support. The judge said. Your Honor, that's not fair. Surely there is some wiggle room here. Ms. Livingston said. It appears that the only reason any of us are here is because of the conduct of a father who can't stay out of his daughter's business. The judge said firmly. It's obvious this situation is really all about the trust Mrs. Richards is coming into. Her father sees himself losing his control over it and her. He also seems to believe that if you don't live with the same views of things, you're a danger to his influence over his adult daughter. Therefore, Ms. Livingston, get to this court by next Friday a copy of Mrs. Richards's trust. The court is dismissed. I watched the court officer escort my wife out of the court across the street to the county jail. I knew it had to be humbling for her. The problem was she was constantly pulled by her father to help further his political career. I had refused to allow her to become the social butterfly he required. By marrying his daughter, I had brought an end to his eager pawn. For the first time in her life, she had to live within a budget. I realized that he had been slowly drawing her back into her former lifestyle. While I was on my last sales trip, he had gone for the kill. Everybody had underestimated the judge except for me. I had noticed Rachel that first year at Southeast Missourian University. Who wouldn't? She was a real looker. I knew that the men would be lining up to get the chance to date her, and I was right. With long black hair, a slender softy body whose natural curves drew you, and she could easily capture a man's attention and did. She had a too trusting personality which, if taken advantage of, could cause a lot of problems. She seemed to be involved in all social or political activities. It was and never would be my cup of tea. I had more important things to do. I had to work to eat and for room and board. For my parents, my borrowing the funds to attend school was too much. We were taught from being young to find a way to pay our way. It took 4 years, but I graduated with honors, just barely making it. There were rumors not proved that her graduation certificate was bought and paid for. 6 months later, John Brownstone was doing a tour with his daughter in a plant where I was installing the latest computer system and programming it. She strolled over to introduce herself, and when I got up to say hello, I was welcomed with the greatest smile. "Hi, David, we went to school together, but I never saw you outside of class," Rachel said. "We thought you were an introvert." "No, I had to work full-time to get through school," I disclosed. So, between school, studying, and full-time work hours, my social life got set to the side. Since then, I have lived as cheap as possible to cut down my student debt as much as possible. "Will you be in Cape Girardeau on Friday?" she asked. "Yes, I work out of Cape, so I still live there," I said. "I should be finished setting this new system tonight. I will spend tomorrow making sure it's all working before heading back." "Applebee's Friday is 7 then?" Rachel said. "It's a date," I replied. About an hour and a half later, just as I was finishing up, the general manager came over and told me that the representative's daughter had been asking questions about me. I told him that we had gone to school together but associated with different crowds. He smiled and said, "There's something in you that she's attracted to young man, so be careful because that lady is marriage material." We met and the evening went well. We went to a bar along the University Row and had a few dances. I guess she got upset when I didn't ask her for a second date. When she asked her friends what was wrong with her, they told her the simple truth. He still sees you as belonging to a separate world. He has worked hard to get where he is. You haven't worked an honest day in your life, nor do you appear to want to. He's at the point where he's ready to settle down and start a family. That means joint responsibility and an approach to life you don't have. You're still spreading your wings and living like nothing means anything. It had upset her family when she took a job, got an apartment, and started living in the real world like everyone else. It didn't take long for her to realize that she had no clue about how the real world worked. For Rachel, it was a life-changing experience. She was learning at her age what it was like to do the basics like cooking, dishes, and laundry. We all saw her struggle with normal things we do in life as she learned them as an adult. Some of her high-class friends dumped her as a result. They couldn't understand what she meant when she told them they needed to get off their privileged life and discover the reality of most. It had been a rough 6 months, but I had noticed she was adjusting. So, one Saturday, I saw her in the mall sitting on a bench looking sad and lost in thought. I went over and sat down beside her. "Rachel, there's a community dance being held on the fairgrounds tonight. Would you like to go with me?" I asked. "Why now?" she asked in complete surprise. "Because you now understand the world I live in and can see some of the phoniness of yours," I said. "As a result, you have grown up a lot the hard way. You have shown great courage and determination these past few months and have earned my respect." We learned that night that we both love to dance. It was fun to see her actually enjoy herself without having any airs influencing her. She asked me on the way home why she'd been accepted by so many without question. I said, "Because you were just being yourself. For a person with your upbringing, that speaks volumes." As I walked her to her apartment door, we kissed for the first time. It wasn't long until we were seen as a couple. Her mother was thrilled with the changes in her daughter. It amazed her to find out that she had learned to be a pretty damn good cook. Her father was another story. He was not impressed that his daughter was becoming a well-balanced adult woman. He hated me because I would not discuss politics with him. One night, out of frustration, he went at me. His wife and daughter were shocked when I went at him, using his own arguments against him like the skilled politician he thought he was. Later, privately, Rachel's mother warned us that her husband hated to be made to look like a fool. "David, he expected you to fold because he thought you knew nothing. He was not prepared for the facts that came from your lips. He thought you were a shallow person. You proved you're not. He will hold a grudge until it forces him to try to take you down. I had learned young that power and influence earned was always respected by the one earning it. When being handed it on a silver platter, it became a tool to keep others under your control, and it became corrupted. It had been at my parents' place on Christmas Eve that I got down on my knee and presented the ring to her. Less than a year later, we were married. Her father wanted to make it the biggest event of the year. Rachel had shot that down fast. It was Monday afternoon before I went to see her. Rachel needed that time to think things out. Judge McDonald had done us all a favor by throwing her in jail. Her high and mighty father couldn't get to her now. Her mother had always been a buffer for us from him until they got divorced. I watched her walk in looking sad and depressed until she saw who her visitor was. Seeing it was me, she broke into a smile as the tears started to flow. Sitting down across from me, she said, "He did it again, didn't he?" "Looks like it," I replied. "I was told you had filed because of your affair," Rachel said. "When did you figure it all out?" "When Ms. Livingston had to reveal who was paying her bill," I said. "What's behind all of my dad's actions? It has to be more than just revenge against you?" Rachel said, "To me, it boils down to something that must be hidden in the trust." I said, "Because for some reason he wants our marriage ended before it fully takes effect." "When did you figure it out?" I asked. "You got to understand that being pregnant has got my emotions working irrationally at times. Dad broke the phony news of your affair, and I lost it." Rachel said, "If he put something in front of me, I signed it because I was upset over losing you. This weekend out of boredom I read all the documents. When I read that it was Dad's secretary that you're accused of sleeping with, I knew he had set us up. So, what are you going to do after you get released from jail?" I said with a big grin. "Going home with my hubby after telling my father we are done." Rachel said, "Remind me to tell my mother about his latest stunt." "I'm just glad we figured it out before our marriage was destroyed," I said. "Thanks for not saying I was a fool for falling for his bullshit," Rachel said. "If you were half the man you are, you still would be a better man than my father. David, always remember that I fell in love with the man you are. Don't ever change. It's you that keeps me grounded. Mom said you coming into my life made me a better and different person. She was right. My value and outlook about things have changed so much. I am so mad at myself for allowing myself to be drawn back into the bullshit." I went and visited my wife every day until Friday. We talked about everything. Rachel and I were surprised to learn that the judge did not want us sitting with our lawyers when we appeared before him this morning. The sheriff's department officer who told us said the judge does not want us identified before certain people are required to testify. As a result, my wife would be deliberately held back and would arrive late in her everyday clothing. Rachel and I walked hand in hand the Friday morning from the county jail and slid into the back of the courtroom just as Judge McDonald took his seat. "I see the three ladies who claim to have witnessed the romantic relationship of David Richards are here," the judge said. "I would like them to go stand beside him if he is here in this court." Rachel and I watched as the three ladies went over and stood beside a man sitting with her father, John Brownstone. "David Richards, will you please approach the bench?" the judge requested. The room went into shock as I stood up and joined the man the ladies had pointed out heading to the bench. When we both had almost reached him, he told us to stop. "Rachel Richards, would you come forward and identify which man is your husband?" the judge asked. Rachel came forward. Her eyes and face were smiling big time. Once she reached us, she stood beside me, taking my hand into hers. It appears that these three ladies had witnessed an affair by someone using David's name in a deliberate attempt to destroy his marriage and ruin his life, the judge said before going on. The question came to me was who would benefit from having this marriage break up? Who had the financial means to pay for it? I had to ask myself why. Those reasons were why I ordered that a copy of the trust be supplied to my office. I had a trust lawyer review it. "Stan Johnson, can you step forward and testify what you learned?" Rachel looked at me and whispered, "Do you know anything?" I whispered back, "No." Putting all the legalese into common language, there is a clause that says if Rachel Brownstone is not married by her 25th birthday, full control goes to her father until she reaches the age of 40. He said, "Since she is, it has legally been hers since the day she got married. Not has only the court been scammed, but it appears that Rachel has too. Stan, send a copy to the Attorney General office. Inform him of what we now know. Since John Brownstone is our state representative, it should be his office that investigates the situation to see if criminal charges should be laid." The judge said, "Does the plaintiff have something to say?" "Yes, Your Honor, I do." Rachel said, "I wish to withdraw my petition for divorce." "Granted." Judge McDonald said, "Hire Stan to get your trust legally in your hands." The court is dismissed. We watched the man claiming to be me taken in for questioning, along with her father who looked defeated. Ms. Livingston handed me the envelope containing the $10,000. "Mr. Richards, you could probably sue your father-in-law for a lot more than this," Ms. Livingston said. "I wonder how much they were all paid to try to get the divorce done." "We don't have to," Rachel said. "He has just written himself out of his grandchildren's lives forever." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.